Welcome to Black Feathers, a true and honest conversation about disabilities for all. I am your host, Dr. Crystal Hernandez from the Cherokee Nation. Our ancestors believed in the medicine wheel and circle of life. When you fit one upon the other, you will see your world in its true form, releasing tears of joy as in ceremony. Everything had a rhyme and a reason for doing what we did over countless centuries of honing and practicing. It was living in sync with the natural processes. Tony Ten Fingers, Ulaga Lakota. Welcome to Black Feathers Podcast, Episode 5, Season 2. Today we have Jen Randall, the Executive Director of the Oklahoma Developmental Disabilities Council with us, and we could not be more excited. The mission of the Developmental Disabilities Council of Oklahoma is to advance communities where everyone has the opportunity to live, learn, work, and play where they choose. The council builds partnerships to change systems to improve services, resources, and supports for Oklahomans with developmental disabilities and their families. Jen, welcome and thank you for your support of the Black Feathers podcast. We cannot wait to learn more from you and about your organization.
Thank you. It's very cool to be here. It's my first podcast.
Oh, wow. It's your first podcast ever? That is so hard to believe because I see you everywhere.
It is. I'm an avid podcast junkie because I have tons of podcasts, so including this one.
Fabulous.
So, yeah.
We always like to hear that. So I'm going to start just by asking you a little bit about you. Tell us a little bit about you. Tell the listeners a little bit about you, your education, your experiences, and then we'll dive into the specifics of the DDS Council of Oklahoma.
Great. Thank you. So a little bit about me. Goodness. I'll probably speak a lot about one of a very important experience in my life. I was in college and I had just decided to change my major from child psychology to special education. And it was almost summer, so I needed a summer job or something to do during the summer, and applied to be a camp counselor at a camp in New York in the Catskills. And I remember being on the airplane going up there thinking, well, this job is going to help me decide if I chose right for my major or not, because the camp was Camp Jened but at this time was in Rock Hill, New York, for adults with disabilities. And absolutely, I didn't know it at the time, but it changed my trajectory so much, gave me so much just information just about people. And so I completed my degree at Southwestern Oklahoma State University, and worked for about 14 years in Oklahoma City Public Schools. Most of my time in a classroom was spent at the high school level, but I have done, middle school. I started at middle school, so I think that got me ready for anything, because middle school is, wow, it's definitely fun. And then went to high school, and then I ended with some time at elementary, which is awesome because, high school, you're trying to get them away from not hugging. And elementary, I'm a hugger, so it was all okay now. But yeah, Camp Jened shaped so much of just who I am. Later in my, when I was teaching, I got to take one of the council's programs, Partners in Policy Making. And I always kind of think about how I feel like Camp Jened was almost a Partners in Policy Making beginning for me. I didn't realize the advocacy that would come after. But yeah, the campers that we had, I think the counselors were more the campers, and our campers, some were former past residents of the institution on Staten Island, Willowbrook, and many of them could tell us about their experiences, and so I think it just kind of really helped kind of who I want to be.
That's outstanding. We hear that over and over, I do in my life, but also every time we have guests on, we hear how one or two experiences really changed their lives and changed the way that they focus on the mission of working with those with unique challenges and disabilities. And so it is wonderful to hear that personal story about you and really hear your heart and why you're doing what you're doing. So with that said, can you share a little bit about the DDS Council of Oklahoma and specifically how you work within that organization?
Yeah. So, I feel like you guys might think you have the best job. I hate to tell you that you don't. I really am very blessed and lucky to be in the role that I'm in, working with the Developmental Disabilities Council. It really is neat to wake up every day and love what you do. I have definitely an issue with work-life balance because it blends so much in who I am. But the DD Council, our Developmental Disabilities Council, really works to just make things better. We want to improve services, resources, and supports for people with developmental disabilities and their families. Our board members that we have are all governor appointed. And what's really, I think it's unique with our board is that 60% of our members are either individuals with a developmental disability or a family member. And I don't know of many boards that have that high representation for family members and individuals with those lived experiences. So, but yeah, we're just working to just make things better, improve all our services and supports so everyone can have a good life.
That's amazing to hear because you're right. A lot of times we have decision-making boards, councils, coalitions, things like that. And it's a lot of professionals with, good intentions, great hearts, mm-hmm. but they're oftentimes missing those with lived experience, whether it's a self-advocate or a caregiver, family member, things like that. And so when you do have that representation on boards, it does change the way that you focus that organization because it allows people, number one, who don't already have that personal experience, a new way to look at the critical thing that they're doing and the decisions that they make have real life consequences or real life, opportunities for real life people. And so that's great to hear that you are intentional about the way that you look at the composition of the council. So with that said, we already heard your story. We heard your why. We kind of see why you're, yes, you do have a fabulous job. I would say that is absolutely correct. And so when you look at this role and kind of the function of this council, how long has it been in operation in Oklahoma?
Yeah. So in Oklahoma, we've been here since 1973. We're established by an executive order by Oklahoma Governor David Hall, and it's always been reauthorized by every governor since. We're federally authorized by the Developmental Disabilities Assistance and Bill of Rights Act of 2000. What's really cool is that we're not the only Developmental Disabilities Council. There's 56 of us, so there's one of us in every state and every territory. So if there's a listener out there in a different state, please look up your Developmental Disabilities Council. We all are here to, just like I said, make things better in our states.
That's excellent. So we learned about how it's formed and reauthorized. And yes, listeners, if you are in another state, and Jen, you should probably hear this too, we're also listened to in several countries. So we would love for you to find your own DD council and figure out how you can get involved or how you can have your voice, heard, and also see the services and cool programs that each one offers. So with that, how are you funded?
So The federal authorization, it comes from the Developmental Disabilities Assistance and Bill of Rights Act. So every state, we all have different formulas. Our state gets, for Oklahoma, we get a certain amount allotted every year from the federal government. So it's all federally funded. We do partnerships with other organizations in Oklahoma to really create innovative projects to help our individuals with developmental disabilities and their families.
That's great. So, we've heard about how you're funded. We heard about, how long you've been around. And you did mention one of the projects or programs that you talk about throughout the state. I know when I first moved to Oklahoma several years back, I heard about it all over the place that I went, partners in policymaking. And so I was curious if you can kind of explain to the listeners, what is partners in policymaking? And then we'll dive into the Youth Leadership Forum after that.
Yeah. So Partners in Policymaking is amazing. Like I said, it did definitely change my life. It is really just a disability advocacy training and leadership and advocacy training that we host. It is, as times go, we try to make it easier for people to attend. But at this point, it is 7 weekends and not back to back. I always try to make sure that family members and things know it's not back to back. I don't even know if I could do 7 weekends back to back, right? We're all living our lives. But it's kind of during the school year, so from September to April, and we just talk about different issues along the lifespan. We talk a lot about community and social capital. We'll talk about education. We bring in speakers for those topics. We talk about IEPs. We'll talk about employment. But one of the big things is that we really talk about how do you partner with a policymaker, and policymakers can be anyone. It could be your federal congressman. It could be a state legislator. It could be a mayor. It could be your neighborhood association chair. Anybody that has the ability to make those policies. But how do you really make that partnership with them so that you can create change? Our council really is focused on that systems change. So we want to make it better for everybody. Leave it better for us all.
Yeah. So, I love that you mentioned that policymakers are not just one type of, elected official, for example, that they really are in all walks of life in every single place. And a lot of times I hear, who am I to go talk to this person? Or how do you even begin to talk to this person? Or how do we set policies? Or how do we write bills? Or how do we propose a bill? Or even an amendment to, a state rule or any of those things. Right. And so a lot of times people think that it's too intimidating or they don't know where to begin. And so every time I hear about policy making and partners in policy making, for example, it's really about not just teaching someone, but it's like equipping them with the the tools that they need, because the skill and the message is already there in the person. And so it's amazing to see, how we can help individuals get their voices out there and really help shape some of the critical things that will impact not only their lives or their loved ones' lives, but the future, and how important it is to be at that table or in that room when those things are happening. Policies and rules Correct. And statutes and regulations and all of the things that operate around us in everything that we do. It's incredibly important, especially for those that are personally impacted, to have a voice and to let their experiences and their opportunities and their wishes and their challenges be heard. So how many members do you typically have each cohort? And how are they chosen?
Yeah, every year we select about 30 to 32. That's the hard part, is that so partners, the council funds it completely. We try to make it as cost free as we can to our participants. Our goal with partners is to really build capacity, because like you said, we've got to have more people out there talking to our policymakers. It's us that are living it. And if they don't hear from us. They don't know what's working. So we're really trying to just build capacity on that. How we're selected, we just try to make sure, are you ready for change? Some of our topics may be tough to hear. Really, it's just about challenging your thinking a little bit in that in what we present. We don't ask you to change your minds, but we will offer you those challenging topics. We bring in, keynote speakers that are going to give great information for you to really learn and be able to deliver your story to your policymakers.
Excellent. So when you talk about, you choose these individuals, they go through this process. It is all funded by the DD Council so that it really offsets, the burden of cost. And it is, a time commitment, but talk about the reward at the end of that commitment and how many lives, including your own or your loved ones, can be completely impacted by the output. And I know a number of people who went through that partners in policy making experience. And most of them, we see them on social media. We see them on the news. We see them at the Capitol. We see them all over the place, really helping educate, inform, coach, partner, right, with people who are making policies. But the other cool thing is we're now starting to see them step into those roles themselves and make those policies and those laws and those rules. And so that is a beautiful thing to see.
Yeah, that's really the fun part, I think, is just watching like our graduates from this past year. One of our activities that we will do is a mock legislative testimony. And I think many times people are told, oh, go talk to your legislators. But if you're never in that situation, if you've never done that, it could be scary. And so we tell our students that we're going to tell you to talk to them, but we're going to take you with us. We're going to show you how to do it. And we had, students deliver testimony to legislators this year that we heard legislators say, I wish I would have heard this last week before I voted on a certain issue. So we've had people tell us that they've changed jobs after partners. Now, I'm not saying that every person is going to find that, but I think that all our participants definitely, by the end of class, they find out that the importance of, I need to talk to my legislators. I need to talk to so-and-so, but how to share that as well and understand that, how to start spreading the word, how to be more active. Because as I've even shared with my team, things can get hard. Advocacy can get hard. But the one thing that we all have to remember is we all have to take care of each other. And when one person needs to take a break, then the other person stands up. And that's how we're going to keep advocating and keep fighting for what's right and fighting for each other so that, again, it goes back to that good life where I'll never forget when I was getting my master's, I learned a new term from the Turnbulls, and it was more that enviable life. And that's what I want for everyone. We want that. I want people to have an enviable life. I want to be able to say, point to a person with a developmental disability and say, dude, I want that life. Right. What am I doing this, And so that's really, we want to build that capacity so that Oklahomans, we're out there, we're talking to people about just, what can we do to make this better for us all? Don't forget about us.
Absolutely. That's a great, example when you're teaching them. And, I strip it back to even further because we talk about, how do we equip individuals to realize they have the message and they have the skills? We'll just kind of give them the courage and help them sharpen up those skills. But really, a lot of people don't even know how to find who their elected, representatives are, even locally.
Right. Right.
So
you're exactly right.
So I think you're doing a fabulous thing by creating not only this opportunity, but really it's about being seen. It's about visibility. When you have these groups being visible about what it is that they're doing and the significance of what they're doing, it makes it easier for others to think and realize that they too can do this thing. So what a phenomenal program.
Thank you. Thank you. We like it. Yeah.
A lot of people like it. Everyone talks about
blessed.
it.
I always laugh. I don't know if you, one of our speakers for partners and for our Youth Leadership Forum, his name is Chuck Roberts. And Chuck, when I was a teacher, Chuck and another man came into my classroom and held a 2-week job club with my students. And then he helped me start with students First, which was a student's version of Oklahoma People First.
Okay.
But within that time, he said, you need to take partners. So I guess it's Chuck's fault.
There you go. It's his fault. But what a great thing to take credit for, right? Like, I caused that ripple.
Right.
So moving on to the next program, Youth Leadership Forum. Can you explain what that is, how people participate, and kind of what the overview is?
I could talk all day about the Youth Leadership Forum. It's my heart for sure. And I always, when I talk to students and parents, our logo for the Youth Leadership Forum has kind of there's different colors on the words, and it kind of has a hidden message. And the message is, you lead for you. And really, that's what Youth Leadership Forum is. It's really just us spending 5 days on a college campus with high school students with disabilities, just talking about life after high school. What do they want to do? Parents can bring them, but then we kind of kick them out. We don't need them. Mm-hmm. So it's residential. They stay with us for those 5 days. We do just a lot of different. We're really intentional on the activities that we do to just give that a confidence factor for them to know that you've got the skills. You may have to work hard. We all do, but you can do this. We do a lot of kind of team games where they're learning things that they don't realize it, such as, I think sometimes we always talk about social skills. Well, we do that, but we're intentional in how we do it. We do that in those team games. How do you communicate while you're trying to solve a problem? How do you listen to each other? Things like that. We bring in, just like partners, we'll bring in people from out of state, in state, for different topics. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of LaDerek Horn, but he's one of our speakers for many, many years. The students love him. He's a fan favorite. He and Michael Beers are definitely fan favorites. And they both grew up, they're adults with a disability. And that's part of our model. We want leadership by example. And we can't do that if we don't have people with disabilities. So we do that. But we also, to help with that leadership by example, we also hire graduates of our Youth Leadership Forum to come back to work. Because again, there's no better leader and no better example than those that are living it. And so while Partners is more heavily into that systems change piece. The Youth Leadership Forum is probably heavier in personal advocacy, really learning how to speak up for yourself. We do want our students to understand systems change. So we take our students to the Capitol one of those days. We'll do a mock debate in the House chamber, meet with legislators, and just like partners, we're going to pay the bill. We don't want cost to be a barrier. We just want to help them have, the best life possible, and to help us, join us on this advocacy train. So to help share your stories.
That's amazing. I mean, talk about all areas of life, self-advocacy, young, transition, up to, adults, caregivers, and self-advocates as adults. And so talk about how impactful those two programs alone are. It's amazing to hear. And I hope listeners that are kind of considering joining one of those programs, depending upon, where you are or you're having your child join one of those programs when they're a youth or transitional age, group. So shifting gears a little bit, talking about the DD Council specifically. So you mentioned already that they're governor appointed. Can you tell me how many are there, number one, and how are they spread out around the state, or are you kind of, is that intentional? How are they recruited? So just kind of learning a little bit more about the composition would be great.
All right. So we do recruit all of the appointees go through the governor's application to serve. When they go through the application to serve, our original name when we were first founded in 73 was the Planning Council on Developmental Disabilities, and I believe that's still how we're listed on the application to serve. So kind of an important note, just because they won't see us as Developmental Disabilities Council. They'll find us under the Planning Council, which still kind of makes sense because that's really what we are. We're a planning council. But it's just really, you go through that application process. If you have questions like how many times you meet, or what's kind of the time commitment, you can always call me and we can talk about kind of what we do, things like that. Because we do have committees. Generally, we'll have 4 quarterly meetings, which all of our meetings are open, and we have them all listed on our website. I can send the links to you or send you the schedule. Welcome anybody's input, because while our board members may be the ones voting, we need to hear from everyone. So anyone's invited to attend, and would love to have more input. Right now, we're actually going through some listening sessions that we're trying to gather more information for our next 5-year state plan. And so that can be done by attending one of our sessions or by completing a survey. But yeah, just more information about just being appointed, you can call me and I can give you, like the different committees, things like that. But it just really starts with getting that application to serve. If you do apply, if you'll let me know, because then I can let the governor know and their staff. That way, when they're appointing, they can do that. At this time, we have 20 members, but we always have, every year, we usually have a few that might either time commitment, life can throw us all curveballs, so we might have someone that needs to be replaced. So always, I would, if you're interested at all, I would put the application in. But we have, like I said, 60% are mandated, have to be individuals with a developmental disability or a family member. And then there's the other slots are for agency organizations such as our Department of Rehabilitation, Developmental Disability Services, things like that. That are key in the whole process as well.
Perfect. So you did mention the 5-year state plan, and I wanted to shift into that conversation. So you're currently working listening sessions to gather information so you can start planning the next 5-year plan. Can you talk a little bit about the current one, how that comes to be, what's included in it, and anything else you think is relevant about it?
Yeah, I think we had a really good 5-year state plan this year, or these past 5 years. Right now we're in our 4th year. So that's why we're really trying to get listening sessions all around the state, just to really learn more about, what's happening out there, what's working. I've told some people we want it all. We want the good, we want the bad, we want the ugly, because that's the only way we can start really thinking through what are some innovative things that we can do to maybe help that gap. And I always think, when we think about councils, we always want to, our goal is to really look at services and systems right now on this 5-year state plan, and the process that we're going through with the listening sessions is to really look at all our different services and supports. Look at all the information that we'll gather with the listening sessions. And when we see those gaps in services, and when we see a gap in services and supports, we get to come in and dream. What are those innovative programs that we can come up with another organization and help with that project?
So it sounds like it's really not only a dream, the bigger dream, but it's also the realities, the opportunities, the gaps you said. And, a lot of times people come together and they make strategic plans and it's all great and they put them on a shelf, right? And it sounds like you are intentional about how do we operationalize this and activate it? How can these dreams become reality?
Right. And I'll never forget. So the last time that we gathered, we were doing our listening sessions was sadly during COVID. And so they were all, while we're finding that virtual works probably best right now too. All of our sessions were virtual last time. And I remember it wasn't a set listening session, but I remember talking with a couple of friends who were parents, and we were just talking online, just chit-chatting, trying to, if you remember that time, just trying to be social with each other. And I looked at them online and I said, okay, help me dream a little bit. You guys are both parents. What's something that you would want that could help you or help your family? What's just name it. If you didn't have to worry about money or anything. Then one of them said, I just want respite. I need to rest. I want something where I know my kids are fine and I want to be able just to lay there and not think about anything. And so through that and through other information that we had, we went to Center Success and said, hey, this is what we're hearing. This is what we're learning. Is this something that you could do or would even want to do? And now we're in our fourth year working with them to provide more caregiver respite retreats. And so they provide essentially 5 weekends. 4 of them are in different locations of the state for parents to go to a hotel and just have a weekend. Just, if they're single, then they get to have a weekend. If they have a partner, with their partner, without worrying about their kids. The council will pay for money to provide voucher money so that their kids can be cared for. We help with hotel, food. We just want to be able to help our parents have some sort of rest. Then that 5th weekend that I had mentioned is actually for siblings. So instead of the parents going to a hotel, it's for the siblings of families. They get to go to camp, all of them, not just the person with a disability or not just the siblings without a disability. It's all the siblings. And they get to go and have a camp just for them. So while it's for them, the parents still get to rest. And that project was born from our listening sessions.
That's amazing. I love that you are intentional about thinking, siblings, single or married or together or whatever that composition looks like. And you're thinking about, the things that a lot of people take for granted is that moment, that downtime, that rest. And so it's great, especially when you get a bunch of siblings together, because I've been a part of, several sibling camps and various, community functions. And obviously I'm a parent myself of a child with autism. And it's great when you're around other people and when you're able to share and have, those moments together. It's just, there's nothing like it. So thank you for those programs. So shifting gear now towards tribal nation specific topics. So how does the DD Council currently collaborate with the various tribal nations in Oklahoma?
I think probably the most that we do is not through a direct connection. There's a couple of different projects that we have that are really good with making sure that we are intentionally including them and helping them. One is with our work with Oklahoma Autism Center through the Early Access Screenings Program. They've done a lot of work on just making sure, like I said, being intentional to our tribal nations and making sure that there's early screening assessments for people. As you know, we know that early intervention is crucial to helping people get better services and supports. And so they work really to make sure that people are trained in their communities all around, so that we can make sure that people are getting that early intervention and getting supports. The other project that we started really working closer with to making sure that we're intentional with our tribal nations is that a small grant that we were awarded from the Developmental Disabilities Council national organization that really focuses on bridging aging services and developmental disability services together so that there's a smoother transition. And we have several members on that really are helping us be intentional to everybody, not just this committee. It's grown a lot, just because when we learn something, we're like, we need this expert. This is not us. And so we've really, I think that's probably one of the learning aspects of this committee is that we didn't have everybody that we thought we did. Mm-hmm. And so we were able to include them. It's just, I would definitely, I think we have a lot of room to mm-hmm. grow, because it's so important to include all of our tribal nations and citizens in this space, because it's all about justice and equity. Mm-hmm. When we're ignoring the experiences and perspectives from our tribal nations, it's not fair.
Right.
And we've got to do better at addressing what they need.
Absolutely.
Just to make sure that we're providing that.
So it sounds like you have that desire and that awareness to say, for the listeners, Oklahoma has a massive tribal nation spread and tribal citizens throughout the state. And a lot of the nations have different structures like aging services, human services, mental health, behavioral health, etc., education. And so it's really important that they are partners in the policy making, right? And so, leading mm-hmm. down that same role, how can we have more representation of tribal citizens with disabilities and their caregivers involved in the DD Council? If you could dream the dream, right? What would that look like?
I think right now, I'd love to see more. We will set up more listening sessions. We've been trying to be intentional in having smaller sessions because we don't want them so big that people don't feel like they can mm-hmm. talk. So we've been keeping them around 10 to 12 people. I'd love to see them on our listening sessions, anybody, because some of our questions are just... they're all open-ended questions about what's not working, what is working. Are there programs that they know of that are shining examples of greatness that we can look at to learn from? We were learning about some different ideas in Duncan, and we're like, maybe this is a research study to find out how they did it, mm-hmm. right? But then I'd also love to see them, until we can get them appointed, just attend our meetings, because while they're not a board member, we want to hear from them. I'd love to have them mm-hmm. attend and let us know. Attend our partners in policymaking, apply. If they have young people, I'd love to see them in our youth leadership forum, because all those activities, while yes, they'll benefit the DD Council for sure, but all those activities are going to benefit your communities, because then they're going to take what they've learned into the communities. And then as well as our self-advocacy trainings that we have several curriculum that were designed by adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities, and they're also the trainers. So, if those trainers will go out and deliver in person, they'll deliver virtually. But those are just some ways that really start kind of let us meet you.
That's amazing. So listeners, please, encourage your elected tribal leaders to be active and involved with the DD Council, your citizens to participate not only in the listening sessions, but, there's open invitation for meetings, and also to apply to be on the council so that you do have a vote and help draft what this next 5-year plan is going to look like, what the opportunities are within Indian country, and have your stories and your voices included so that it really does paint the true picture of Oklahoma.
Exactly. Yeah.
Fabulous. So let me ask you a question. So you kind of alluded to it already, and I think if you have anything further on it, I think that'd be great. So why is it so important, specifically in Oklahoma, to include the tribal nations and tribal citizens in everything that is DD Council?
Really, I mean, it's everybody, right? I mean, it's about the all. In one of our work, we talk about it's through the Treading the Life course. We talk about the all. And we're all Oklahomans, right? We're all here trying to live our lives. And if we don't have everyone's voices, we can't make sure that everything's fair and justice for everybody.
Perfect. That's beautiful. So also on that same vein, what are your overarching goals for, one, the DD Council as a whole, but do you have any goals about tribal recruitment or tribal, touches and reaches?
Goodness.
Dream that dream, right? Dream that dream.
Just trying to stump me. So when you say goals, is that like our current goals or my?
Yeah, whatever you when you sit at your desk and you think about what are the overarching goals? Yes, I have the 5-year plan and we have all these things, but if you can just say, these are my 2 main goals, what would they be?
We changed our mission a few years ago. And I mean, I really feel like, I feel like it's really, it's what, I guess the biggest goal is that anyone can, like it says, have an opportunity to live, learn, work, and play wherever they want, with who they want. It's however you define your family, right? It's however you define your friends. If you want to work remote, if you want to work in an office, where do you want to play? Do you want to play it at the park or wherever? Is it accessible for you? But just to make sure that you have the opportunity, just like everyone else, because it goes down to really, I mean, that's what's fair.
Right. That's beautiful. So any challenges that you see? I mean, there's so much uncertainty going on, locally, nationally. And so when you're looking at that overarching, potential challenge or that landscape, are there any concerns or things that you see coming down?
I think some of the challenges, I get worried about some of the pushback that I feel like we're having with inclusion. Everything that I just said, people having the opportunity to live, learn, work, and play where they choose. That means inclusion. And I think I don't know what it is, what the fear is yet, but there seems to be a fear of the word inclusion. And yet, if I'm out in the community and I see something needs a curb cut, people get it. So I don't know how. I feel like that's a challenge in that disconnect of helping people realize what we're talking about is what we're seeing. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you see any challenges with funding?
Funding is always definitely a concern. Yay. As far as, I'm always concerned about, I guess, for our folks that, may need that extra help with Medicaid and things. And that's where our partners in policymaking and people to help us advocate and help us educate people on what Medicaid does help people with, helps people be able to go to a job, helps people be able to pay for those prescriptions. But also, funding as far as DD councils, we are federally funded, and helping people realize that the work that we do is important, that people do learn how to become advocates so that they can go change a policy, or that they can have a friend with best buddies, and understand how to do that, or help the state fair with accessibility and bringing in universal changing spaces. So, help connect with people through Black Feathers. So it's a community.
You could not have said that better. We need more people realizing that this is not just something that is to be taken lightly. When you change policies or funding for people who are marginalized, who are forgotten, and who do need supports and do need to be heard, you are impacting quality of life, longevity of life, and communities and families and individuals.
Right.
Absolutely. So, is there anything, Jen, that I did not cover that you really want to have on this podcast?
Goodness. Good question. I guess, definitely check out our website. We have a lot of different of our projects. And you can check out our I mentioned earlier, our national organization, and the website, I should have had it ready, nacdd.org.
Say that all again. Say the website
it's
is
nacdd.org. Yeah, so it's the National Association of Councils on Developmental Disabilities, and that will help you connect to other councils. There's 56 of us, and I really, in March, we celebrate Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month, and our national organization created the campaign called "We're Here All Year," and I just think that's so beautiful. I love celebrating Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month, but I also want people to know we're not here just March. We're here all year, and come meet us, get to know who we are, and get us involved, because we have some really cool people on our board. Maybe someday we'll get you, Crystal. Hint, hint.
One day, yes, you will. Yes, you will.
We can have a good time together.
That's a perfect way to end, because you need to check out the website, check out their social media as well. They post a lot. And again, yes, we are here all year. It's great to celebrate. It's great to have visibility. But don't forget that when the month ends, the week ends, the day ends, people still exist. And so, absolutely. Thank you for your time today and for the exceptional work that you do for the individuals and families across Oklahoma. It is truly inspiring to learn about the accomplishments of the DD Council of Oklahoma and the initiatives currently underway. I eagerly anticipate the opportunity to continue observing your greatness, your progress, and collaborating with you in the future. So thank you for joining today, Jen.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
The true measure of our community lies in our ability to create and nurture safe spaces for our most unique and vulnerable members. It is these spaces that individuals can express themselves freely without fear of judgment or exclusion. By fostering an environment of empathy and understanding, we not only support personal growth, but also strengthen the bonds that hold us together. Encouraging open dialogue and active listening, we can address the diverse needs and challenges faced by each member. Together, we build a community where everyone feels valued, respected, and empowered to contribute their unique perspectives and talents. In doing so, we pave the way for a more inclusive and harmonious future, where diversity is celebrated and kindness prevails. I want to thank Lucas Frazier and the boys for the use of their drumming music, and I want to thank Cherokee National Treasure Tommy Wildcat of the Cherokee Nation for the use of his flute music. Season 2 of Black Feathers podcast is focused on Oklahoma, spearheaded by the State of the States in Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities and funded by the Developmental Disability Council of Oklahoma. We would love to hear from you. Tell us about your journey with disability and guide us on our future episodes of Black Feathers by visiting blackfeathers.org and answering a short survey. We hope that you will listen, subscribe, and provide rating and reviews. We want to thank our listeners. Please follow us on X, Facebook, and LinkedIn. You can get resources and information about this podcast at blackfeathers.org. Remember, none of us walk alone. Together we are stronger, and it is the roots that bind us.